We went from sleep to accounting. It was
What a great transition.
yeah.
Why is accounting so complicated, mate? I guess so that you guys have a job, right?
Exactly, man.
But it's obviously, I guess, the law
Yeah.
and the rules and
Yeah.
all the things that governments put in place that make it complicated, right?
Do you know? I was listening to. There's some people that believe there's a case for a flat tax, right? Just a
Yeah,
flat tax. This is what it is. Everyone
yeah,
pays it. And one of their key arguments is the at least in the US, the tax code is they estimate between 3 to 4 million words. 3 to 4 million words, right? To compare, like to give you some comparison,
yep,
the Harry Potter series, the entire Harry Potter series, is
yep.
just around that 1 million mark.
Wow.
So
Dude, I used to go to bed like 5, 6 in the morning.
um,
Obviously not in school time,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
But that messed up um, my sleep pattern for quite some time,
yeah,
and I've just I never had easy time going to bed early.
yeah,
I was never like an early bed goer.
yeah,
Um, but and there's a but. Just recently,
yeah, right,
and kind of like throughout my life, I used to dab with the idea like every now and then I'd go to bed early
yeah,
and I'd wake up feeling amazing,
100%,
like 100 out of 10,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Amazing. No clock, no alarm clock, no nothing.
yeah,
Go to bed at 10, 9:30, 10, 10:30,
yeah,
and I'd wake up at 4,
amazing,
4:30, my eyes wide open,
the best,
and boom. But then I'll go back into,
inevitably,
yeah, the inevitability of going to bed at 1 or so.
for sure,
Anyway, long story short, just recently decided to make the change.
for sure,
And it's been like just under a month. And not only my productivity,
mm,
my my emotional, I want to say,
100%,
resilience,
100%,
like the things that used to happen to me throughout the day. Everyone got, things, especially if you work a lot,
yeah,
maybe over 10, 12 hours a day, and, a very stressful work lifestyle.
mm.
There's always going to be something that will piss you off throughout the day,
There's always gonna be
right?
fires,
Yeah.
yeah,
And my emotional resilience just went through the roof.
100%,
What used to piss me off now still does,
yeah,
but a lot less.
100%,
And my energy level,
mm.
um, a lot of things changed
100%,
like 2, 3 days in.
100%,
Um, and you know how that change happened?
mm.
One night I just went to bed at 8:30. I had a long day and just went to bed, and I woke up at 2:30 and it felt amazing.
Yeah, right,
And I was like, well, I didn't sleep that long when you do the math.
mm.
I mean, what, 8:30 to 2:30, that's
6 hours.
6 hours, right? You're that counting here. Thank you.
I saved you there.
I was going to do it. I was going to do it maybe a second later. Excuse me.
No.
I've done well in math, but
You're
my,
Egyptian, I'm
my,
sure you have.
my cognitive abilities are somewhere else.
Yeah, for sure.
Excuse me. So it's not a COVID cough, guys. So, yeah, and I was like, I slept less,
Yeah,
but I feel great. I was
100%.
like, let's give this a go. Obviously, I don't go to bed at 8:30. It's not realistic.
Mm.
But 9:30, 10 is what I try to aim for every single day.
100%.
And I'm not going to lie, I use some help sometimes
Mm.
because it's not in my nature, at least for now.
Yeah,
So I use things like
bit of scotch.
melatonin
Yeah,
and this supplement called L-theanine.
yeah, right.
And I wake up feeling so good, man.
What do the supplements do? Just calm you down?
So the L-theanine is a supplement that just eases the nerves.
Yeah,
This is bro science.
yeah, yeah,
I don't know the exact science behind it,
yeah,
but it definitely does um, make you relaxed.
Yeah.
And so if your nervous system is more relaxed whilst you're sleeping,
Yeah.
you're going to regenerate
Get that
and
deep sleep.
rejuvenate
Yeah,
a lot more.
for sure.
And it does definitely go into the deep, like it promotes one of the wave frequencies.
Mm.
I think it's alpha.
No idea.
Anyway,
Mm.
it's get it off the shelf anywhere, any vitamin supplement
Mm.
shop. It's great,
Awesome.
and you feel it right away.
Awesome.
Yeah.
For sure.
So this is my long answer to am I a night owl or early
Yeah,
bird?
I can definitely relate. I 100% exactly what you're saying. Growing up, slept late. As soon as you realize the reason someone like that wakes up so late is because we slept so late.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, but that's a challenge in itself.
Yep.
The where I really sort of learnt to wake up early was there's a book, probably a bit in your industry, Soul Like Crazy, Sabri Subi.
Yeah. I've seen it.
There's a couple of pages where he compares two corporate lives or two people's working lives, and he gives the example of one person sleeps early, wakes up, goes and gets the workout in, at their
Yeah.
desk at 7, churning through. By the time he gives the other scenario where wake up late, etc. By the time the other person's hit midday, the early bird is far ahead, right? So
Yeah.
it's like if you're out there competing, knowing
Mm.
there's people out there, I'm sleeping till 8:30, 9, 10, and there's people out there that are hunting, going at it that early.
Yep.
That almost made me want to sleep late. Like that
Yeah.
almost scared me
Yep.
into you got to get up, you got to go. So it's like
If you're really into the subject,
yeah,
there's a scientist, a sleep scientist
yeah,
called Matthew Walker.
for
Heard of
sure.
him?
Never heard of it.
He was on the Joe Rogan show.
Oh yeah.
I want to say a couple of years ago.
Mm.
He's written a book called Why We Sleep.
Yeah.
He spent the last 10 years basically researching sleep, people who sleep, how they sleep, everything about sleep.
Mm.
And dude, like, I'd go and watch that episode. Like, it was 2 or 3 hours, as most of
Yeah.
Joe's like episodes or podcasts.
Mm.
But I mean, sleep to me is kind of a boring,
Yeah.
no offense, topic.
Yeah.
But there was so much amazing stuff that I learned that I was like, wow, I had no clue
100%.
that stuff existed.
Yeah.
And they even went into like, when you're sleeping is what is that state? What is it about? And one of the things that he looked into was the amount of sleep and how that correlates with health, productivity, cognitive abilities, and all that stuff. But also he got into night owls and early birds. And one of the things he mentioned was society frowns upon people who wake up late. But as you were saying earlier before we started, that back in the day, our ancestors used to, not everyone got up at the same time because
Exactly.
some people had to protect others whilst they were sleeping. And there's some truth to that. But what he was getting at is it's not necessarily a bad thing if you rise up late and go to bed late. We all have different bio clocks. We don't have, and you should do what works for you, right? I just find, personally, going to bed early and waking up early, all the things that I said
100%.
are true to me.
Absolutely.
Like the energy, the emotional resilience, all that stuff.
100% with you. Couldn't agree.
There are a lot of people that go to bed late and wake up late and have done amazing things. So, all the motivational videos that you see and watch and stuff saying, oh, wake up at 4, wake up at 5. Okay, cool. And it works for a lot of people, but it doesn't have to be for everyone.
For sure.
Personally, it does work for me.
For sure.
Anyway, so this is obviously not why we're here to talk about sleep.
For sure.
But it's Friday. And it's past 5, I believe. So you're a workaholic. I'm a workaholic. We got nothing. So we got all the time in the world to talk.
Absolutely.
So great to have you.
Pleasure to be here, man.
Jacob. I certainly wanted to have someone with your background and skill set on the show because accounting is one of the hardest and toughest things out there.
We went from sleep to accounting.
What a great transition.
Yeah.
Why is accounting so complicated, mate? I guess so that you guys have a job, right?
Exactly, man.
But it's obviously, I guess, the law and the rules and, all the things that governments put in place that make it complicated, right?
Do you know, I was listening to, there's some people that believe there's a case for a flat tax, right? Just a
Yep.
flat tax. This is what it is. Everyone pays
Yep.
it. And one of their key arguments is at least in the US, the tax code is they estimate between 3 to 4 million words. 3 to 4 million words, right? To compare, like to give you some comparison,
Yep.
the Harry Potter series, the entire Harry Potter series, is
Yep.
just around that 1 million mark.
Wow.
So
So it's three, four more times.
3 to 4 Harry Potter series, right?
Wow.
They gave I have to get the name of this guy who did it, but they gave multiple different accountants the same set of facts, the same case, and said go and give us an estimate on the tax return or the tax refund or whatever it was.
Yep.
Each accountant came back with a different answer.
Yep.
Because the tax law is done in a way that it's self-assessed, right?
Yep.
You have to assess how much tax you owe to the government, and then if the government's happy, they'll leave it. If they're not happy, they'll come after you.
Yep.
And they have, especially nowadays, the amount of data they have the ability to access is insane.
Yep.
So
in a digital world,
correct,
pretty much everything is trackable.
100%.
And it's not like back in the day where you
Yeah.
walk in with a bag of money.
That's it.
Like everything all transactions, like they you're watching the US debate.
Yeah, I love it.
And maybe yesterday they released that
Yeah.
Trump has a bank account in China.
That's
I'm
right.
like, obviously you knew about that like long time ago.
100%.
You didn't just find that out.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, to your point, everything is trackable.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the law, the accounting code or law is 3 million.
Yeah, so in America it's 3 to 4 million. I'd say Australia is a bit more, a bit smaller, but we're a much younger country.
Yeah.
The reality of tax is it gets more complex every day.
Yeah.
For starters, there's a lot of people trying to find, little spaces within the tax law to minimize their own tax. Not only some people the legal way, which obviously
Hashtag tax evasion.
and some, like a small minority of people, will always just disobey the law. There's always going to be some thugs and criminals out there.
Yeah.
But so to cater for that, they constantly come up with new law. They try the law, something changes, and you need to adapt all the time. And you can only, they just keep adding to the tax code. So over time, it just builds up and builds up. There's new transactions. One of the biggest challenges in accounting at the moment is dealing with a global digital economy, right? Like we've never had to have tax laws that cater for that.
Yep.
So it's a big challenge trying to continuously implement tax laws. Each country's trying to get their own fair share.
Yep.
And so that's how it just becomes so complex.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So an alternative view,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying that it is my view, but some people might say the reason it's too complicated is, this is the conspiracy theory, is that politicians try to make it that way so that only certain people can take advantage fully
For sure.
into that.
Yeah, for sure.
And on that point, I want to get into, and I'm sure a lot of people want to know, how in the world you have people like Trump, but not only Trump, even corporations pay, like Obama was talking about it yesterday. He goes, I'm sure all of you, he was talking to, it was a big event. He was promoting Biden and stuff. There were thousands or maybe tens of thousands of people that everyone in here has paid more taxes
Mm.
than Donald Trump.
Mm.
So what I want to get at is, how do you have people who make a lot of money, crazy amount of money? They were also saying that companies like Amazon and whatnot, how do you get away, or not away, how do you manage to not pay taxes?
For sure.
And does that happen in Australia too?
For sure. Okay, so it's a complex and simple topic all in one, but I want to give you some context. Anytime you hear that this person paid, let's say Trump paid $750 in tax, they're comparing that to teachers, fire brigade, all these working class people paid more taxes than this billionaire. How is that possible, right? You have to take into context each scenario.
Yep.
I often hear, I was at the pub, one of my mates has a trust. How do I get this trust set up? They reckon they pay no taxes, da-da-da-da-da. Each scenario is unique. Each scenario has its own set of facts. They're completely different scenarios. To compare Donald Trump's tax return to the everyday American is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever seen, right? It's apples and oranges. That's number one. Number two, you have to understand the way the tax system works and what it aims to do, right? So as a whole, you pay your taxes to do a couple of things. One is to protect the borders, to have fire, have military, etc. The other, that's how it started. Then it became, what else can we do with the tax dollar? And it became Social Security. It became Medicare in Australia, US obviously, not there yet. But the more you do,
For anyone in America, come to Australia, you'll get good.
That's
Medicare.
it. I put a post up. 50 cents not happy about the 62% tax rate, brother. We just decreased our tax rates.
Yeah,
We got a good view out here. We'd love to have you. That's a different story. But you have to understand. Yeah. So why do we pay our taxes? So corporations provide jobs. If you look at the private sector provides 8 in 10 jobs in Australia. That's an Australian statistics. Josh Frydenberg came out and said that when he was doing the budget.
that's including small and medium businesses.
Small and medium businesses. The private sector put 8 people out of 10 in jobs, right?
Yep.
The government takes the burden on the other people. So if you're a government and 8 in 10 people are in the private sector, and the private sector works best when there is less tax and less regulation, it's in your best interest to allow corporations and allow people who provide jobs to have some tax savings, right?
Right.
Now, there's a few different ways they can do that, but one of the key ways they do that is through losses. When you start a business, your first year, 2 years, in the case of Amazon, when they're building something really big, they go a long time before they even turn a profit. They're investing in their business.
Right.
They're investing in research and development. They're investing in so many different things that they spend all the profit they have. So they make no profit.
Like Uber, for example.
Uber.
Haven't made $1 till today.
That's it. Haven't made a profit. Trump, right? He's a developer or developer / celebrity brand, whatever you want to call it. A lot of money goes in to get those buildings up, to get everything off the ground, to fund that scale of business. A lot of money goes into it. So they end up having these losses that you can't pay tax on losses. You only pay tax on profits, right? So a lot of the times we've just made losses. We've just distributed our wealth to put people into jobs. So a common thing is, okay, well, we can't pay tax, right? That's number one. Number two are things like depreciation, right?
Yep.
When you buy a building, when you buy equipment, when you buy a car, when you buy anything for your business, you can depreciate that asset.
Yep.
Trump, obviously being in real estate, that's one of the biggest depreciable assets you can have, right?
Let's depreciate all day, all night, baby.
Right? So you can imagine how much
Yep.
depreciation Trump has.
Yep.
Depreciation is not like it doesn't have it's somewhat of an accounting concept because you can't measure, you can't feel how much a building is losing. It's a written down loss almost. So whilst you could be uber profitable in the real world, your bank accounts
On paper, you're
correct.
not.
Your bank account's going up but you've got a massive tax write-off. You might have buildings, plant, equipment, cars, etc. On paper, you're going to pay no tax, but in the reality is you have cashed up.
Yep.
You have accumulated some wealth. So that's
Yep.
another thing, especially when they say, he's got loss-making businesses. No,
Mm.
no, no. He's got accounting loss-making businesses,
Yep.
but no one survives that long
Yep.
and builds a business that big by
Mm.
making losses, right?
Yep.
That's another thing
Makes a lot of sense.
for sure. So that's another thing. Um, the other thing you have to understand with these business owners is that income tax is just one of many taxes they pay, right? So you and I, we pay income tax. We also pay corporate tax if you have you have an entity set up. But you pay payroll taxes. You pay land taxes. You pay
Sales tax.
sales tax. Sales tax is a consumer tax more so. So consumer pays that. So it's a tax on consumption. But there are corporate taxes that only the big corporates pay. So when you look at have they paid any income tax? They may not have paid any income tax. It doesn't mean they haven't paid any tax. Because they pay a myriad of other taxes. They've contributed to your super. And not only that, the business has distributed its wealth by hiring people and giving them, those profits to take home. Not in the form of dividends and share. Some people might have that. But in terms of wages, all wages is a distribution of capital. So if you're a business, you've hired someone, you're distributing the money away. The government would rather a corporation distribute their wealth than have that corporation make the money, pay the tax, the government gets it, you have to spend on the bureaucrats, and then the bureaucrats get whatever's left over and then give it to the people. The people get it for not doing much. In some cases not doing much, in some cases genuinely struggling. But if you can have people in the workforce employed by a business, it's in your best interest to give them some tax cuts and let them distribute the wealth to the people and grow good, successful, good businesses that create a productive, good economy. So that's a few different tactics on how they're not paying tax. And besides that, I think we were talking earlier, 3 to 4 million words is in the tax code. How much money do you think these guys are spending? You know the biggest, by the way, the $750 Trump thing? Who got the biggest plug out of anyone? What do you think Trump's accountants are sitting there doing?
Of course.
That's a massive rap on them. I'm sure their Google rates went up. So out of all of this, man, I've done a lot of talks where I talk to businesses, entrepreneurs, and things like that. And one of my questions is always, hands up who wants to pay more tax, right? No hands go up. Hands up who wants to pay no tax, all right? 90% of the room.
Of course.
Hands go up. Who wants to pay the right amount of tax? And then, that's the correct answer. We should always aim to pay the right amount of tax and follow the law. But there's a lot of people out there who want to minimize their taxes. And when they're trying to grow businesses and keep cash flow, I don't blame them for doing that. So Trump's accountants, they can get Trump down to $750 supposedly. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of customers waiting for them. So
he probably pays him a lot of money.
He probably does. He probably does. Which is hard for the everyday person because he's obviously got deeper pockets.
I think, like you said, it's a very convoluted, sophisticated equation. And it's very easy to look at it from a superficial perspective and say, whether or not the law is set up in a way to give advantage to certain people versus others, I think that's a very tough conversation. And obviously we're not here to discuss that. And like you said, if you can leverage, I was going to say take advantage, but leverage is probably better.
100%.
The laws and regulations that you have in your country, be it Australia, America, whatever, to pay, if you can pay zero tax, there's nothing wrong with that.
100%.
What tends to happen is as you have more wealth and as you have more businesses or make more income, there are ways for you to leverage more to pay less. But it's one of those things where I look at it as like when you pay tax, especially after the return, when you get like the slip that shows you where that money went into, if it was, if you pay taxes and you get returns
that's
as a
right.
citizen, which we do get here in Australia,
Yeah.
you should not be upset with that.
100%.
You know,
100% agree
yeah.
with that.
And I do believe I'm not a socialist.
Yeah.
But I do believe that we should have structures in place that, in a way, help us minimize the gaps between social classes or people. Not to the extent where that gets people to be lazy.
Yeah.
Right, because that model never works.
Yeah.
But we should there should be a level where everyone is looked after in some shape or form, right?
100%.
And I think we have a very good balance here in Australia. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, Australia's I'd say pretty good as well. I think we do have a good balance. I would love a bit more capitalism.
Yeah.
if
How much more?
Well, I don't know, it's a we've got 27 million people. We're a
Right.
very young country,
Mm.
and we're very blessed with natural resources.
Yep.
So I don't think Australia's ever really been put in a position where we have to innovate or die.
Yep.
The reality is we've been selling our natural resources for quite some time. And to be honest, this is the first time I've really seen Australia put in a position, if China starts to get a bit choppy with their relationship with us,
Yeah.
we really need to have a thriving
get pushed
private
off the cliff.
sector. Well, we need to have a good thriving private sector. I look at Australia and I think there is some serious opportunity. We're a free country. I love Australia. Gave my family opportunity, gave me opportunity, and it's you're right in that we've found some sort of a good balance. So I would love to just see an open, free market generating wealth, distributing that wealth throughout the community. I think capitalism is a good way to do it, but each to their own, and it's a conversation in itself.
I mean, I personally think there aren't a lot of barriers to starting a business here.
Absolutely,
right?
100%.
Like I started a business with $300-400.
100%.
Boom.
100%.
Like online, my application, like back in 2016, I just did everything online. Excuse me. And next hour, I had a business. I had a business 100%. Name and everything. But I think where you're getting at is the structure itself.
Yeah.
In terms of tax as well.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
allowing further investments to come in.
100%.
I think it's kind of tricky because foreign investments do have a downside as well. And I'm not an economist, right? So I'm not going to dig deep into this. But I would approach this point from a different angle, which is, are we innovating? Are we contributing to the world?
That's right.
For example, if you look at America and if you look at China, they both contribute to the world in different ways when you talk about economy,
sure.
right? A lot of tech comes from the States,
for sure,
right? A lot of innovation comes from the state.
Absolutely.
Not to say that there isn't tech and innovation coming out of countries like China, for example, but when you look at China's income, it's mostly dependent on things like manufacturing. And so when I look at our economy, before I go into this, the one thing that I realize pretty quickly when I look at a country like America or United States or China is the diversity in terms of what the income looks like and where it comes from. Be it tourism, manufacturing, all that stuff. When I look at our economy here in Australia, we're a lot less diverse.
Absolutely.
And so even in business, if you have 3 products and your competitor comes up next day and, they do a good job and your main seller is not selling anymore, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Right? And so if you look at what happened in Australia after the pandemic kicked in, one of the main source of income we had was tourism.
Mm.
And what happened to tourism? Gone.
Yeah.
Out of the window.
Yeah.
Right? Done.
Yeah.
And that's one of the main reasons we struggled a lot. And my personal opinion, I'm just going to go into this real quick, and I know I'm going on a tangent, but I really like that topic.
No, for sure.
One of the things that perhaps we didn't feel like we struggled a lot is all the money that had to be poured in. 200 billion, is it? Was it? 200?
Yeah,
something like that.
300.
Yeah, 300.
They made a small error when they were doing JobKeeper.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like that.
Anyway, we're not here to shit on the Australian government. Thank you very much for the money. We appreciate it.
I think they've done a great job.
I'm here to kind of disagree a little bit.
Yeah.
With the approach. Yes, you had to put in money to create, as they call it, the cushion.
Yeah.
But who's going to pay that?
100%.
Who is going to pay that in the next 10 years, 20 years?
100%.
Us.
100%.
Right? If we had a lot more diverse income, because if you look at our income, tourism, mining, natural resources, like you said, immigration,
housing,
property market. But property market, I look at it as under the immigration as well.
Yeah.
Like it overlaps with immigration, right?
Sure.
So you have immigrants coming in, your population in percentage is increasing quite a bit.
Yeah.
You need to house people, which feeds into the construction industry as well,
sure.
Right? Immigration and tourism, done. So 2 out of your 4 or 5 main sources of income are out. If you had 10 sources of income, and 1 or 2 went out, that cushion wouldn't have had to be that big.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And this is where I think like you were saying, the opportunity for the Australian economy is that we're a very service-based economy, right? So besides mining.
Yeah.
And so if we were to, I look at automation and AI, and obviously the manufacturing sector collapsed, or not collapsed, but like gotten smaller and smaller over the years.
Yeah.
Why don't we leverage AI and automation to bring back manufacturing?
100%. 100%. There's so much opportunity in Australia. We're a baby of a country. We came into the pandemic with a phenomenal balance sheet. This spending that we've seen, you mentioned the stimulus, this is unheard of. Never in my life did I think I would be seeing the spending at the pace we've seen. America can almost get away with it to a point because they have the world currency, right? So they can, they're America. They've got a good GDP. They control the world currency. They can pump out some dollars. But Australia, this is the first ever time I've seen it. So I honestly believe there has never been a better time to be an Australian business owner supported by the stimulus that the government has put out. And I think we'll go into the budget a little bit later. But, there's technology at your fingertips. You're right. You can start a business with a couple of $100 in your bank account and a dream. It's all about just solving the next problem, or finding a better solution to the problem. We have a free market. We have free press. There's beauty to that I think we underappreciate, because I don't know why we underappreciate it, to be honest. I think we do because we're 100 years old or 150 years old, and we've ridden we've had a really good run. I mean, there's never on small scenarios there has been some economic wind back, but this is unprecedented. What we're seeing now is it's insane. So yes, let's get the stimulus out there, but let's do something with that stimulus. If the worst in this stimulus comes that a small business was able to open, innovate, and create thousands of jobs, that's beautiful. I'm okay with that sort of spending. I'm not okay with spending of here's some money, just go sit down, don't go out, don't get back into the workforce and just chill for a little bit. That is destructive to a society. So 100% on the line of thought there, in that just let's get back to work. Let's get the
Yeah.
private sector back up and let's innovate for sure.
Yeah. I mean, let's put money in places or businesses that allow us to have a competitive edge in the world.
100%.
Innovate.
Yeah.
Come up with one of the reasons, and my podcast is probably at the bottom of podcasts because I just started it.
Yeah.
And so I don't take any pride yet in any shape or form. But one of the reasons I wanted to start this is at some point when the podcast has a fair bit of reach, I want to give the opportunity to Australian entrepreneurs to be seen and heard by the rest of the world.
100%.
Because I think we have a lot to do and a lot to share with the world. And I mean, like in terms of what was it? Nobel Prizes per capita, it's quite a bit. You know, when you look at all the achievements, it's just a small country, 27 million.
100%.
But even if you look at the Olympics, right, the medals,
Yeah.
but per capita, it's
Yeah.
quite high.
Per capita for millionaires and billionaires, Australia's per capita for GDP.
Yeah.
We're a productive nation.
Yeah.
We're something to be proud of. But you're right, we need to find a way to have those entrepreneurs building businesses, innovating. There's untapped potential in this country, and I'm super excited to see the future of this country.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely, man.
We love ScoMo.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to accounting topics and accountancy. Now, we talked about how some of the big guys don't pay a lot of tax.
Yeah.
So that's cool. What are your thoughts on, if we shift gears a little bit, what are your thoughts on the new budget that was announced by Mr. Treasurer?
For sure.
Do you like it? Do you not like it? What it means for us? How would you have done it if you were in that position? And how can businesses or people leverage any part of it? Yeah.
For sure. I think as a whole, they've done a pretty good job. I don't think, especially if you compare it to the world governments, you know, I think we've held our own as a government and as a people. To start, we shut down. We didn't know what the virus was. You know, we had to get money into the hands of the government. Put people out of jobs, so it you know, had to distribute some sort of money to keep these people open. It did. JobMaker, if there's any spending that was very good, JobMaker has literally kept, you know, I can name
JobSeeker.
JobKeeper. So there's JobSeeker, which went through Centrelink,
and JobKeeper,
which went through businesses. And JobKeeper has literally saved businesses. I can name, you know, tons and tons of businesses. JobKeeper has really kept them alive.
You're an accountant, so in your accountancy firm, like you see that, like with businesses all
100%. And so, and then they, you know, there's JobKeeper, now there's JobKeeper 2, and then there'll be another extension in March. But we'll go into that.
You reckon there will be 3.0 after March?
There's 2.0 now. Nah, after March, it depends how we go, man. But I really hope there's no more. Just let us get back out there, man. Like, we've learned enough about the virus. That's, you know, everyone has their own opinion. That's scientific. You know, I'll let the scientists sort of deal with that. But as a private sector, I'd love nothing more than to see us free again. So I think the budget, I think the government did well in terms of JobKeeper. I think the budget was good. I think it was good. I think it was, obviously, they keep saying it, but it is a job-focused budget, which is great. And they know that the private sector creates the jobs, so it was nice to see some incentives for small businesses and for medium businesses. Where I think, obviously, the downfall is, it's the reality of life, in that you have to spend to get a return, and they've spent. No one can deny that. The good thing about the spending at the moment is that the interest rate's super low, so the debt doesn't cost a whole lot. And if you compare it to the return you hope to get, you know, you would really hope to come out on top.
Can I ask a question on
Yeah.
that? So you mentioned the interest rate.
Yeah.
When the government borrows money,
Yeah.
it borrows it from the RBA, or does it borrow it from outside?
Both.
Okay,
Both. Yeah.
because
It issues government bonds.
right,
People buy the bonds. The government pushes the money on.
cool. So and the bonds could be owned by Australians or also international,
Yeah, and
right?
and the reserve.
And the reserve.
And the reserve. Yeah.
Okay, so it's a
Yeah.
mix.
Yeah.
And so when you talk about the interest rate
Yeah.
of the borrowing,
Yeah.
that is that fixed across the board? Because if for example another country or
Mm.
international investors buy the issued bonds, at what rate and how much is that costing us to pay it back?
It's a good question.
Right? And
Yeah.
I don't expect an answer.
No,
I'm
no,
just
for
like
sure.
kind of thinking out loud
Yeah,
because I
yeah.
feel like lending is not as easy as like, oh, okay, let's just there's ramifications. But anyway,
For
we
sure.
kind of covered that.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
So going back to the budget, it's job focused.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a job focused budget. And I'll go into some of the finer details if you want. For businesses, there were three main big ticket items, if you will. The job maker credit, that's massive for small businesses. So if you're familiar, job maker credit is for anyone between the ages of, I think it's either 16 or 18 and 29. You get a $200 a week credit to employ any of those people.
Right.
There's some conditions on that, in that they must have been on job seeker or youth allowance before they went and got
Right.
employment with you. But if you can see what the government's trying to do, they're trying to move people from the government to the private sector.
Yes.
Right.
By paying the private sector to
Correct, to
employ and keep,
incentivize
yep.
them. Exactly. So there's $200 up until 29. There's a $100 a week credit if you're between 30 and 35.
Right.
I believe the reason they
It's a
picked
bit of a discrimination against older people.
this is the thing. So a lot of people have that feedback. The reason they selected the younger generation to do that is, I read a statistic. Zero actually put this out, in that a lot of the people who are losing the jobs are the younger generations.
Right.
That's number one.
Do you think that's because they have less experience?
Yeah, I think it's
Or
a bit of
maybe, yeah.
everything. I think it's less experience and the type of jobs they're doing.
Right.
I think there's a lot of retail, hospitality, those sorts of
Tends to
things.
attract younger demographics.
Correct. Yeah. Just that's the more mature crowd are professional and they develop their skill set, etc. So there's a couple
Or
of
if you
elements in
had
that.
if you had to lose someone, you would
Yeah.
lose like the junior and keep the manager.
That's
for
right.
example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So so that's there for sure. But one of the key indicators of a good, vibrant economy is if young people are finding work. If
Yep.
your young people aren't finding work, that's a problem.
a major problem.
That's a major problem, right?
Yep.
So it's really about getting those younger people into roles, especially graduates who've racked up some student debt.
Yep.
You really want them to get into those roles and to start contributing to the greater economy.
Yep.
So I think that's a great measure. That's number one. Number two, and just actually on that, if you incentivize businesses to
Yep.
hire and give them a credit for it, it allows you to compete with cheaper sources of labor. So
Okay.
in professional service, especially in accounting, there's been a big shift to outsourcing and offshoring some jobs. But if you
Overseas.
can, yeah, correct. Why? Because the labor's cheaper, right? If you
Yep.
can incentivize, like we want Australians in jobs because they're going to contribute to our economy. If you can incentivize businesses to hire in Australia, that's even better. You know what I mean? So I love that they've done that. Then they have to have been on a job seeker, or they have to have been essentially an Australian citizen
Yep.
to be in that role. That's number one. Number two for small businesses is the instant asset write-off. So we were talking, before about,
Yep.
people writing their assets off and making a tax loss. So that's a massive incentive for small businesses. I know with all of our small businesses, when we do tax planning, that's a hot topic. What are
Yep.
we buying? What are we writing off? And
Everyone went to buy the Lambos and
that's it. There's still what a lot of people don't know is, or don't seem to know, is that there's also a car limit. The car
Yeah.
limit never changes.
Yeah.
So it's 54K. So I get many calls. Let's go
The
buy
clients are like,
AMGs.
Jacob,
Yeah.
which car do I buy?
That's it. Yeah. So for cars, for vehicles that carry over 3.5 tons or have a towing capacity greater than, I think it's a ton or 3.5 tons, that's okay. But for cars, no AMGs yet.
Yep.
Just save your money for that.
We're not a Sweden or Denmark. We're not a Scandinavian rich country.
That's it.
Yeah,
So so instant asset write-off, massive incentive for businesses to go out there, invest in their business, and obviously when you spend, someone else, makes a sale, so it's circulating the money that way.
Yep.
It's been tough because not every business has the funds to go out there and spend money on significant assets.
Or if they do, they don't want to let go of the cash because
That's
this
it.
is an important time
Correct.
where you keep your cash.
Exactly. You got to be cash flow sensitive at the moment. Great point. So there's that as well. Previously, that used to be, when I first came into accounting, it was $1,000. It went to 6. It went to 20. It went to 30. It went to 150 during coronavirus, and now it's uncapped.
1,000. It used
When
to be
I first
1,000.
started, accounting,
When
it
was
was
that?
1,000.
Like 50 years ago?
Oh, I got grey hair.
No, I'm not judging by the grey hair. I'm just
Yeah,
judging
yeah.
by
Yeah.
1,000 write-off.
Yeah,
That is
when I was
nothing.
20, 21. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, but that's a great thing to get people investing in capital assets.
Yeah.
The final thing that they've done is an interesting one. I think they tried it once before. I was still a junior, so I wasn't heavily involved in it, but it's called loss carryback.
Yep.
So there's carry forward losses. So you make it, generally the business cycle is you make some losses earlier on, you invest in your business, and later you come up with a profit. And you get to offset that profit with previous year's losses.
Yep.
Now what they've done is that if you made a profit in prior years, but you have a bad year now, obviously due to
Yep.
coronavirus shutdowns, etc., or government shutdowns, if you will, you can offset the losses you make today with previous year's profits. What's interesting about that is that you've obviously paid tax on the profits in the prior years.
Right.
So now you're getting a credit of that tax you paid, and you're getting that back, whether that's reducing, your whatever debt you have with the ATO, or potentially refunded straight back to you. So that's actually a really cool incentive as well. Yeah.
It's a bit confusing.
It's a bit confusing, but if you think about the loss carry forward, so you made a loss, now you make a profit, and then
Yep.
loss carry back is just literally the opposite. So you made a profit, now you're making a loss, so you get to carry those losses back.
Yep.
That's
So
the
you
way.
get credit back.
Correct. Yeah.
For
Exactly.
the tax that you paid
Exactly.
the year before.
Exactly.
How far back can you go?
I believe it's either 17-18, the 17-18 or 18-19 year.
Right.
I can't remember off the top of my head. They have, I believe, passed this one through. So we can look at the legislation and it'll show that
Yep.
there.
Cool.
But it runs for a couple of years. So that's a good one. That's for businesses. What's good for individuals is that most people got a tax cut. What does that mean? So essentially, instead of giving more of your money to the government, you are keeping more of your money.
Yep.
That's interesting in that it got backdated to 1 July. So most people should actually start to feel a real difference in their take-home wage.
Yep.
Shortly, the ATO has pushed the payroll softwares to get that done, to update their tax tables. So everyone essentially got a pay rise.
Yep.
That's great because the business owner didn't need to spend extra. The government is just taking less.
What's
is
the
cool.
percentage on average? Is it like a 2%, 3%?
It's hard to say percentage-wise.
Okay.
I've got a couple of posts on my Instagram that go through the budget as a
Yep.
whole. One of the posts
What's
literally...
your Instagram account for everyone watching?
so it's
they can follow?
Advisory Corp. It could be Advisory Corp Accountants or Advisory Corp.
Okay.
But if you search Advisory Corp Accountants, you'll find it.
Yep.
Um,
And what's the website?
www.advisorycorp.com.au. My LinkedIn's a good one. I'm always pretty active on my LinkedIn.
Very
if you
active.
So-
And if you see a post on 50 Cent, you know it's good.
That's it. I did a Guess Who's Back Eminem for Lost Carryback.
Right.
If you saw that
Yeah.
post. But anyway, so LinkedIn, Jacob Fahmy, that's a good one. So
Can you spell Fahmy for everyone?
Yeah. So Fahmy, so
F-A.
Fahmy.
Cool.
Fahmy. So everyone gets a pay rise. That's fantastic. People are putting more money back into the economy, hopefully, and stimulating it through that way. Pensioners and disability benefits got a $250 cash payment in December and March, which is good. Again, putting money back into the economy. And there was a few other things, but they're sort of the main points that will really help. Yeah.
Do you think that moving forward, because a lot of people are saying the ramifications and the impact of what happened over the last 8-9 months is something that will carry forward for the next maybe 3, 4, 5 years until the economy bounces back. So do you think that in the next 3 to 5 years we'll still see some help and support from the Australian government and the tax budgets and whatnot, or do you think it's just going to be next year and then we're going to come back to normal?
It's hard to do you know what's unpredictable about this? Is that we don't actually know when coronavirus will stop, right? So, and by the way, one of the biggest critiques of the budget was that they had in there that this budget is based on a coronavirus vaccine being ready and available. I think it was by 2021, right?
Somewhere in the middle.
Somewhere in the middle. So they've assumed we've solved the coronavirus issue. So
maybe they know.
Maybe a lot of conspiracy theorists, I'm sure, will be going nuts with that one. So if we can get through the pandemic or whatever and track the way we're tracking, if Melbourne and Victoria opens back up and brings
shout out to Mr. Daniel Andrews for the lockdown. We appreciate it, mate.
1,000 jobs a day. 1,000 jobs
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Anyway. So if everything if we get through, and the government's aim was always, if you remember, ScoMo at the start was always saying, this is a bridge to the other side. There is going to be another side. There is going to be an end to this pandemic. And I pray to God that end comes a lot sooner than what we'd hope.
For overseas, for anyone who's not from Australia watching or listening, ScoMo is Scott Morrison, our Prime Minister.
We have a unique slang in Australia where everyone gets called ScoMo. Yeah. I love that.
Jacob Fahmy, you'd be Jaffa.
Yeah, Jaffa. Rani, you're Rani. Yeah. Raza. So, look, I really do hope this is the end of the spending, but it has set some precedents, especially there's a conservative government in Australia. If the conservative government is spending at the level they are, I can only imagine what sort of precedents that sets for a more progressive government when they take over, if they take over. But I hope this is the end. I hope we can open our economy back up to full capacity, and I hope there's a brighter future where there will be no spending. It's not a guarantee. This stimulus is a lot. It's really out there to encourage small businesses to get out there, hire, grow, invest again, and stay agile. So I really hope it does its job. Will we feel the ramifications? Obviously, we for sure will. Our generation will.
The good thing is your kids will probably not.
That's it. Yeah. Hopefully, if we do a good job, our kids might not. But
so
we'll see how we go.
Great point.
Yeah.
Great point. Thank you so much for explaining all of that.
For sure.
Now, I am a person who is thinking about starting a business.
For sure.
Right. I've had a great idea, been thinking about it for a long time.
Yeah.
And the pandemic hit. Maybe I was just about to start.
Yeah.
And I kind of pushed back things a bit.
Yeah.
And I'm contemplating now to start. Any general advice from an entrepreneur, from a coach, from anyone will say, just go and do it.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm also interested in the accounting perspective of, is it now a good time or not? And I think you kind of touched on that now that, the government is encouraging business stuff. Why is it a good time? What should I know and focus on from a business and an accounting perspective, starting out? And what should I be careful of?
For sure. Great question. most accountants you ask are pretty conservative.
Yep.
So it's all about,
That's why you're here, mate.
Yeah, that's it. Numbers.
Yep.
And then that's where you'll find a lot of coaches and accountants sort of grinding it out a little bit. I'm a much more optimistic, person. So I always think the best time to start was yesterday. The best time to plant a tree, when was it? 30 years ago or something?
Yep. Yeah.
The next best time is today, right?
Yep.
So if you're out there, if you've got a business idea that's solving a problem, go read the book, The Lean Startup.
Yep. Heard about it.
For sure.
On my
Great
list.
book.
Yep.
Great book. You don't have to start with, going and blowing, a couple of $100,000 or your life savings or whatever. That's one way to do
I
it.
did when I started the podcast.
That's one way to do it. The other way is, test the market, see what the market wants. No one can tell you, a lot of people say, I have this great business idea. I told it to my friend loves it. Of course your friend's going to love it. They're going to support you.
Yeah, don't go to the yes sayers.
That's right.
And don't go to the naysayers that will just say no, just to put you down.
For sure.
Get a very comprehensive, complete perspective from everyone that you can talk to.
For sure.
Without obviously giving away anything confidential.
Yeah.
But get a very neutralized, objective perspective from different people.
For sure.
The worst thing that you can do is just to get yes from people who love you.
100%. So, and what I would add on to that is, even, a lot of people will say yes, and then you drop the price and they, I don't know anymore. Start lean. Get a minimum viable product, which is a concept you'll learn if you read that book. Get a minimum viable product up and running. When I first started in accounting, I know it's not the most entrepreneurial discussion, but I just got my tax agent number. I started doing a few jobs on the side. I started slowly growing, and then I found myself getting busy enough, too busy at times. So I ripped the Band-Aid and went for it.
Yep.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Were you working for a company in also accounting at that point?
Yeah.
Okay, so you started your practice next to it, bit by bit, until you got enough work that...
Exactly. Obviously, I went through the ringers in the corporate world. I then moved to a small business. I did my CA. I got my tax agent license. There's a lot to go through compliance-wise as an accountant. So it takes some time. There's no overnight successes. Don't believe that, rubbish of... We had an idea, we did it, and we went. That's not the real world. The market will decide if your business is a success or a failure, right? So if you take that minimum viable product, you get it out to the market. If people start paying for it, guess what? You've got a good product. You've solved the problem. Then start to grow, start to scale, start to look at different options to strategically grow out your business. Set a vision, set a mission, get a purpose.
The problem that a lot of people might face is, how do I test the market legitimately and go out there without emptying my pocket or without paying too much?
For sure.
Right? Sure. This is where because you can go out there and get an idea, but it's not a solid idea until, like 100%. You said, you actually go in the market or to the market. So how do you find that balance? Because you're an accountant, you work with businesses all day long. You see how different businesses spend and invest, right? And the most critical investment you'll make as an entrepreneur is the first one.
100%.
Isn't it?
It is. It is. In terms of how I would test the market, is, like I said, I'd start minimum and I'd start viable. Minimum viable product, right? The least, what is, let's say you want to start a digital marketing business, right?
Yep.
You've gained what you think are good digital marketing skills. You think you've found a niche that you can really help. Okay, get out there, start an Instagram, start a Facebook. As silly as it sounds, start creating noise around what you have to offer.
Yep.
Land your first client, right? That so far it hasn't taken us much of an investment. True.
Yep.
Land your first client. If you have to, do the job,
yourself.
For free. Just do it for free. A lot of people say, you should charge your worth. You're worth more. You're worth more.
That builds up. It doesn't
that
start
builds
like
up.
That.
You don't go out there start charging $2,000 a month on your first project, right?
Yep.
So prove yourself, get a track record, put some runs on the board. And then if you start to generate some sales, if people are referring you around to their friends, if people are liking your brand and your business on Instagram, on Facebook, on socials, whatever, you know you've got something you can offer. So it doesn't have to start. And then, you know, you might start off as, I do Facebook ads, right? You might start rolling out Facebook ads. Everyone's loving the Facebook ads. Later, you might develop, okay, look, I've found a niche within that Facebook ad. I really know where it works. Or let's have a dabble with SEO. Let's have a dabble with, influencers or something like that. So you build your product as you go, and you have to just stay agile and listen to what the market's telling you.
I think that's a great point. I think in the example you mentioned, that's more a services based business, right?
Yeah.
We have a lot of that in Australia. Shout out to the businesses that get into the product space, because that's what I personally feel like we need more of.
For sure.
Right? How do you get a product-based business off the ground and test it in the market without... and by the way, this can also be not tangible product. SaaS software.
For sure.
Right? That's one of the areas that we can also focus on. But also physical products. How can you... There's got to be a point where, like, you're definitely going to put some money in.
Oh, for sure, for sure. So once you've found... I'm trying to think of a product, for example. Once you've found... Okay, you've got that vision in your mind. You know what that product needs to look like. You sort of have a rough idea.
Prototype it. Let's say it's like, you know, some smart device.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah.
You have to be able to strip it down to a point of its minimum viability.
Yep.
So if like maybe Facebook, that sort of started as like a software-ish type thing, where at first Facebook wasn't, you know, Facebook as it is today. It was simply, it was almost like a Tinder. It was almost like a, you know, rate this person, whatever. And then they grew it because they saw what the college was liking, what the different markets were liking. They grew it into Facebook, started pouring in. As soon as they found, okay, people are using this, people are uploading photos of themselves, people are engaging with this. Now let's try to add. That first start was like, okay, let's spend 5, 10, 20 grand on coding, and let's put something together, something small together. Later on, they're like, okay, this is working. Let's bring in the big bucks and let's start developing this further. That whatever that minimum viability is, it's hard to put a number on it because each product is so diverse and different. But put yourself in just find that quiet space and think about, what problem am I trying to solve with what product, and how do I solve that problem with the most minimum, you know, essence of that product.
Yep.
Close enough to the real thing, but really small scale, and then add as you go. That's the best advice I think I could give.
Dude, I'm so happy you mentioned that. Like, I'm so big on problem solving when it comes to creating a business.
For sure.
And like all the guys, all the entrepreneurs, guys or girls who have made a dent in the world, they always talk about that.
Yeah.
You know, and take Elon Musk, he always talks
100%.
about that too. So it comes down to the kind of problem that you're solving.
For sure.
So you got to start out with, take a step back and, what is the problem that I'm solving?
For sure.
And is that problem something that people care about?
For sure.
Right? Am I giving, by the product they're making, giving people more time? Am I allowing them to be more effective in the day? Am I helping that business do something more effectively? And most of the time, it comes down to things like convenience, time, doing something better, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And I remember one of the quotes, not word for word, but Elon Musk was saying that don't try to be different. Yeah. Try to be better. Aim to be better, 100%. Right? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, what's your point of differentiation?" That's like, you know, the one of the biggest things people say, especially in the marketing. what's your point of differentiation?
Mm.
Like, no, it's not just about being different.
Yeah.
It's about being better.
100%.
And so going back to what you're saying, it's about what problem am I solving?
Mm.
And is this something people care about?
100%.
That should be the starting point. And if you're talking about physical products, I feel like getting samples, yep, that's cool.
Yeah.
But sometimes if you're actually really solving a legitimate problem, getting a sample is going to be tough because you're going to ask whoever who's making it to do something that's probably never been done before.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, and perhaps that's why people who are, I guess, engineers or in software like a programmer or developer, you know, they have a sort of an advantage.
For sure.
Not to demotivate anyone who's not, but they do have an advantage because I can create the prototype or the MVP myself.
Yeah.
I don't have to go to Jacob and say, hey, can you please invent this for me?
Yeah.
Right? I'm an engineer or I'm a scientist or I am someone who was able to. You don't have to have credentials, right? You don't have to have any credentials. You just have to have the knowledge.
Correct.
And I can afford to, I can do it myself. And that way I don't have to pay someone an arm and a leg to get me to the market. But then again, like you could do a lot of things just by making significantly higher improvements in something that already exists.
For sure.
Right?
For sure.
So going back to advice to new entrepreneurs from accounting and entrepreneurial perspective, MVP is a great advice. I totally agree. Anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll just touch again on what you said in that solving a problem. The sooner you realize all business is a solution to a problem or a solution or a more effective solution to a problem, it's so much more liberating because you can pivot, you can adapt, you can see what the market's enjoying, and it becomes a game, right? And there's a feeling that there's actually, it's hard to explain, but when you start a business and you start to understand that, you'll realize that pretty quickly. The next thing is it's hard when you're first starting out to come up with a budget because the reality is you don't know how much something is going to cost you before you have some sort of track record to go off. You need some data.
The rule of thumb is always going to be more than what you thought.
100%. Always going to be more than. So what I usually like to do with a lot of my business owners is I go trade, get out there, trade, and do your MVP, and let's see where you're at. Once we have some data, we can start to build out a budget realistically. Whenever I look at a business plan and there's a budget in there and they've made $0 in sales, I can assure you it means less than the piece of paper is worth on. So build a budget for sure. And this goes out to current business owners is the reality and new business owners. You need to have a finger on the pulse of the finances of your business. I teach a lot of my clients to do their own bookkeeping. Okay.
Wow.
I can charge $50-$60 an hour to do the bookkeeping for them. But for some time, for as long as they can handle it, I want them to do their own bookkeeping because they get to see the numbers that are going, where they're spending their money, where the money's coming in from. They're understanding the way the finances of the business work, and that's super, super important if you want to grow a good, successful business. So that's one thing. Get a finger on the pulse of your finances. If you've been
measure every dollar.
100%. Get a software. Shout out to Xero. I know I mentioned them earlier. Xero is world class when it comes to accounting, when it comes to the tech they have put in to coming up with an amazing accounting solution. I love Xero.
They sponsor the podcast one day.
Honestly, for sure. So, and I don't have shares in them. FYI.
Are you sure?
Yeah, 100%. I've been looking at them closely, but I don't.
We'll scrutinize that later on.
That's it. What? I don't have a bank account in China. What? No. So, no. So, get a software that tracks your spending and that tracks what's going in and out of the business. Understand your profit and loss. Understand your budget. If you're a business today and you're a bit shaky because of government shutdown and things like that, get back to the drawing board. Have a look at your budget. Have a look at what expenses going out of your business, and make sure you're getting an ROI on those expenses. It's okay if your marketing costs you whatever it costs you. Just make sure you're getting a return on those marketing dollars. If you've got great staff members and they're producing sales, or they're revenue generating staff members, that's a good thing. Keep them on board. Don't go too conservative and just rip out all your expenses, because you won't have a business left. But scrutinize those expenses, negotiate those expenses, get a better deal on those expenses. Talk to your landlords. Talk to talk to whatever suppliers are on, and get a good deal. That's number one.
Bargain.
And be aware. Some people have money dripping out of their business and they have no idea, right? They have no idea what they're spending because no one's ever showed them. They've never seen the monthly P&L or whatever it is. So it's really important to get a feel of that. The other main thing I want to go through is cash flow. Like you mentioned earlier, man, cash flow in this environment it's always been king. If there's an environment where really it exemplifies that, it is right now. You need to get a finger on the pulse of your cash flow and be able to somewhat predict your cash flow, but also understand how to build better cash flow. Whether that be, I got a cash flow ebook that goes through just 5 simple things that can improve your cash flow. Getting paid today instead of payment after the work. You know, not a lot of.
How can you download that ebook?
I'll give you a link. I'll give you a link.
Okay, we'll put it on the
for sure
on the
would love
the
to
episode
would love
description.
to.
Yeah,
would love to. So cash flow wise, send out your invoices immediately. There's apps out there. Xero's one of them. A lot of tradies can go on site now and just flick out an invoice on the spot. The sooner your client gets the invoice, the sooner they're going to pay you. If you've got good payment terms, you can get paid quicker. It will help you build up cash so that you can pay your staff, so that you can pay your suppliers, and so that you can keep growing.
There's really 2 dimensions to it, right?
Yeah.
There's how much you get paid, and how fast.
Exactly.
And on the other side is how much you have to pay,
and how fast,
and how slow you can make that.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Ethically. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, for sure.
We're not trying to encourage anything not correct, but there are ways that you can legally and ethically,
100%.
like just going to your suppliers and say, hey, look, like this is what's happening. Can we have 10 extra days on our terms, for example?
For sure.
Yeah.
So that's there are a couple of examples. Managing debtors, managing creditors, like you said, or who you sell to, who you buy from. Getting better terms with those sorts of things, getting a cash flow forecast in place. They're just small things that will really help you grow your business. Having a look at, am I profitable? If you're not profitable, you're not going to have cash flow.
Exactly.
So that is just a simple thing where some people don't even know, am I making money? Is the bank account going up or down? Like where am I sort of at? So that's a big point of advice. That's for current business owners. For new business owners, same principles apply, just at an earlier stage. So you'll have to start to build that profit and loss. You'll have to start to see, am I hiring someone to replace me so I can go and generate more sales? Am I investing into the tech? Their decisions. You'll need to speak to, if you're a small business, your accountant might be able to help you with that. You might have a coach or a mentor that you speak to. But have the conversations. They're really important conversations to have. Because business owners start because they have a vision, because they have a solution to a problem. They don't start because they're good accountants. You know what I mean? So you need good accountants and good advisors around you for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, you've definitely provided some amazing insights. Thank you so much for coming in.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure, and it's been great to talk to you, dude. Like, time passed by so fast. I think we cracked an hour and a half.
Oh, wow, okay, that's a lot.
Yeah. I haven't decided yet how long my episodes should be. Like, I'm kind of winging it, I'm kind of winging it. Like, I had an episode last week that went for 35, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
One yesterday that went for around the 50-minute mark. One today around the hour. This one is an hour and a half. We had to pause because there was a fly bugging us. halfway
I
through.
didn't make it in the shot. I really hope it didn't.
I hope it wasn't
Yeah.
floating around the whole time.
That's fine.
But if it did, everyone who's watching, forgive me. I promise the studio is always kept clean.
100%.
There's no reason whatsoever why we should have one, but I just made it. In the future episodes, I'll make sure I take care of that before that
No, it's
happens.
It's been fantastic.
But yeah, dude, like, it's been great to have you. I'm pretty sure everyone who's gonna watch this will find a lot of value in what you provided. And how I think you mentioned it halfway through, but if I want to reach out and work with you or use your accounting services, what's the best way? Is it LinkedIn or your website?
Yeah, either or. So LinkedIn's good. Jacob Fahmy at LinkedIn, or if you're on Instagram, Advisory Corp Accountants is the name.
And what's the website again?
Yeah, www.advisorycorp.com.au.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
All right. Well, we'll wrap it up.
Thank
It's Friday evening, so everyone just go and have a bevy. Enjoy your
Very
weekend.
classic. Thanks
A
so
bev.
much for having me on, Rani. I appreciate it, and I appreciate what you're doing. And like you said, I hope that one day you can have in this seat some entrepreneurs who have listened to your podcast, got something out of it, gone and applied it, and grown a business. So thanks for having me on. Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, man. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.